The wedding invitation that broke my heart. The wedding invitation arrived on a rainy Thursday. It wasn't the kind of rain that people remembered for its beauty. It was cold, relentless, and strangely quiet, as though the sky itself had grown tired of holding back tears. Outside my apartment window, cars crawled through puddles with their headlights glowing like distant memories. Inside, the silence was louder than the storm. The envelope lay on my doorstep, perfectly dry beneath the small awning. Cream-colored, elegant, my name written in handwriting I would have recognized even if the ink had faded after 100 years. My heartbeat stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. There are some names your soul learns before your mind does. Some handwriting becomes part of your memory the way your own reflection becomes familiar. You don't need to read it. You simply know. It was hers. Emily. For nearly 10 years, I had imagined seeing her handwriting again in countless ways. Maybe a birthday card. A Christmas letter. A note slipped beneath my office door. A postcard from some city she'd always dreamed of visiting. Never a wedding invitation. My fingers trembled so violently that I nearly dropped the envelope before opening it. Inside rested a thick ivory card decorated with delicate gold leaves curling around the edges. Everything about it was breathtaking. Everything except the words. Together with their families. I swallowed hard. Emily Carter. For one impossible second, hope fooled me into believing the next line would hold my name. Instead, and Daniel Brooks request the honor of your presence as they celebrate their marriage. The rest became meaningless shapes. Letters, ink, paper, nothing more. The room blurred. I blinked. The words remained. I blinked again. Still there. I laughed. Not because anything was funny. Sometimes the human heart laughs when it doesn't yet know how to break. Then came the silence. The kind that settles inside your chest until breathing feels like work. I lowered myself onto the floor without realizing I was moving. The invitation slipped from my hands onto the hardwood beside me. 10 years. 10 years of memories, reduced to a single sentence, announcing she belonged to someone else. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. Inside, something far quieter died. People often believe heartbreak begins the moment someone leaves. They're wrong. Heartbreak begins much earlier. It begins in the tiny moments you ignore. The unanswered text. The canceled dinner. The smile that doesn't quite reach someone's eyes. The phone call they promised to return. The silence that grows one day longer than usual. Love rarely ends with a single explosion. It dies slowly, like a candle running out of wax. Looking back now, perhaps I should have known. Perhaps the ending had already begun long before that invitation reached my door. I simply loved her too much to notice. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 32 years old. I design historic buildings for a living, though I secretly believe I'm only trying to preserve things because I never learned how to keep people. Most days are ordinary. Coffee at 7. Office by 8. Music during the drive. Work until evening. Dinner alone. Read a few pages of a novel. Sleep. Repeat. People call it peaceful. I call it surviving. 3 years had passed since I'd last spoken to Emily. 3 years of convincing myself I'd moved on. 3 years of carefully avoiding every cafe we'd loved. Every street we'd walked. Every song we'd once claimed as ours. I even changed grocery stores because the old one reminded me of the first time she'd laughed at my terrible cooking. Healing, they say, means letting go. No one tells you how impossible that becomes when an entire city remembers someone for you. I picked up the invitation once more. There was another card tucked behind it. A handwritten note. Of course there was. Emily never liked unfinished conversations. My chest tightened before I unfolded the paper. Dear Ethan. Even after all these years, she still wrote my name exactly the same way, carefully, as though every letter mattered. I don't know if you'll come. Honestly, I don't know if I even deserve to ask. But there are people who shape our lives forever, whether they stay or not. You were one of those people. If you can find it in your heart, I'd like you to be there. No matter what happened between us. Thank you. Always. No signature. She didn't need one. I could almost hear her voice reading every word. Soft. Gentle. The same voice that once whispered dreams against my shoulder, beneath countless midnight skis. I pressed the note against my forehead and closed my eyes. The memories came anyway. 10 years earlier. I wasn't looking for love. At 22, my life consisted of architecture classes, instant noodles, unpaid internships, and impossible dreams. Love belonged to people who had free time. People who weren't drowning in deadlines. People whose bank accounts contained more than $23. Then came orientation week at Brookside University. Hundreds of unfamiliar faces filled the campus courtyard. Everyone looked nervous. Everyone except one girl. She stood beneath a maple tree, wearing a simple blue sweater, despite the warm September afternoon. A book rested against her chest. She wasn't scrolling through her phone. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was watching leaves fall, as though they were performing just for her. A gust of wind swept several papers from my hands. Blueprints scattered across the sidewalk. Students stepped over them without stopping. Before I could react, someone knelt beside the nearest page. I think this belongs to you. I looked up. Hazel eyes. Chestnut hair dancing in the breeze. The faintest smile. Not the practiced smile people use when meeting strangers. A real one. Small. Quiet. Honest. Thank you, I said. You draw buildings. I try. She studied the blueprint with surprising curiosity. They look lonely. I blinked. Lonely. She nodded. They're beautiful, but they don't have enough windows. I laughed. What difference would more windows make? She handed the paper back. So people inside can remember the world outside. For several seconds, I forgot how conversations worked. No one had ever criticized my work like that. No professor. No architect. No client. Only this stranger beneath a maple tree. She extended her hand. I'm Emily. I shook it. Ethan. Her fingers were warm despite the autumn breeze. She smiled again. Nice to meet you, Ethan. If someone had told me that moment would define the next decade of my life, I would have laughed. Because sometimes forever begins with something as ordinary as helping a stranger gather papers from the ground. And sometimes the greatest love story of your life starts long before you realize you're already living it. That afternoon, we walked across campus together, talking about everything and nothing. She loved old bookstores, handwritten letters, and thunderstorms. I loved forgotten buildings, quiet mornings, and sketching places that no longer existed. By the time we reached the library, it felt less like meeting someone new and more like remembering someone I'd somehow forgotten. Neither of us knew it then, but fate had already begun writing a story that would one day arrive in a cream-colored envelope and ask me to watch the woman I loved marry another man. People often think love begins with a confession. It doesn't. Love begins long before anyone says the words. It hides in ordinary moments, in conversations that last longer than they should, in the way someone remembers how you take your coffee, in waiting just a little longer after saying goodbye, in smiling before a message even loads on your phone. Looking back now, I can't tell you the exact day I fell in love with Emily. I can only tell you that one day, life existed without her. And then, somehow, it didn't. The first month of college disappeared faster than autumn leaves. Emily and I kept running into each other. Sometimes outside the library. Sometimes near the architecture building. Sometimes in the cafeteria, where she always chose the table beside the window, claiming food tasted better with sunlight. At first, I believed it was coincidence. Then one afternoon, she looked at me over the rim of her coffee cup and laughed. "You know," she said, "I think the universe is getting lazy." "What do you mean?" "It keeps introducing us." I smiled. "Maybe we're just taking the same classes." She shook her head. "No. Some people are accidents. And some people are appointments." I rolled my eyes. "You're one of those people who believes everything happens for a reason." "I do." "And you." "I believe people create their own reasons." Emily leaned back in her chair. "Maybe both are true." I didn't answer. Instead, I watched a golden leaf drift past the cafe window. Years later, I would remember that exact conversation. Because somehow, we had both been right. Emily studied literature. She dreamed of becoming an editor, maybe even writing a novel one day. Her backpack was always overflowing with books. Not expensive new ones. Old books. The kind with folded corners. Coffee stains. Notes scribbled in the margins by strangers she'd never meet. She said stories became more beautiful after someone lived with them. I told her she was the only person I knew who considered damaged books more valuable. She smiled. "I think broken things tell better stories." At the time, I thought she was talking about books. One Friday afternoon, she appeared outside the architecture studio carrying 2 paper cups. "I brought coffee. You don't even know if I drink coffee. I've seen you buy one every morning for 3 weeks. You've been watching me. I've been observing. That's somehow more concerning." She laughed so hard, she nearly spilled both cups. The sound echoed through the nearly empty hallway. Warm. Bright. Effortless. It was the kind of laugh that made everyone nearby smile without understanding why. She handed me 1 cup. No sugar. No cream. Exactly how I liked it. "You really have been observing." She shrugged. "You notice buildings. I notice people." That evening, we walked home together beneath trees painted gold and crimson by October. She kicked fallen leaves like a child. I carried both our backpacks because she'd insisted hers was trying to murder her shoulders. The sunset stretched across the sky in impossible shades of orange and pink. Emily stopped walking. "What?" "Look. It's just a sunset." She stared at me as though I'd admitted never tasting chocolate. "Just a sunset." "Yeah. Ethan Walker." She pointed toward the horizon. "Do you realize there has never been another sunset exactly like this one?" I looked. "I guess." "No." She gently grabbed my wrist. "Actually, look." So I did. The clouds glowed like burning silk. Birds crossed the sky in perfect silence. The city looked softer somehow. Less hurried. Less lonely. Emily whispered, "People spend their whole lives chasing extraordinary moments. When extraordinary moments happen every single evening." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. "You architects always stare at buildings. You should try looking up more often." From that day forward, every sunset reminded me of her. Even now. Especially now. Midterms arrived. Stress invaded campus. Students survived on caffeine and panic. Emily handled pressure differently than everyone else. Whenever life became overwhelming, she baked cookies. One night she appeared at my apartment carrying a tin box wrapped with blue ribbon. I made emergency cookies. Emergency cookies. They're scientifically proven to improve grades. Really? No. But they make failure taste sweeter. I laughed. The apartment smelled like instant noodles and printer ink. She looked around. You've been here all day. I have a deadline. When did you last eat? I had cereal. She crossed her arms. At what time? Oh, yesterday. Without another word, she marched into my tiny kitchen. You own exactly one frying pan. It still works. Your refrigerator contains mustard, ketchup, and sadness. I leaned against the doorway. I didn't realize sadness needed refrigeration. It does. She began cooking with whatever ingredients she found hidden in the cabinets. 40 minutes later, somehow, she produced garlic pasta. To this day, I have absolutely no idea how. We ate sitting on the floor because I couldn't afford a dining table. Rain tapped softly against the window. Jazz played quietly from my old laptop. Emily looked around my tiny apartment. You know. What? I like it here. You like peeling wallpaper. I like that it feels honest. Nobody had ever described my apartment that way. Nobody had ever described me that way either. By winter, we had become inseparable. People stopped asking whether we were together. Instead, they simply assumed. Neither of us corrected them. Not because we were dating. Because neither of us wanted to explain something we didn't fully understand ourselves. We spent weekends exploring old neighborhoods. She searched for bookstores. I searched for historic buildings. Whenever she found a bookstore, she disappeared for hours. Whenever I found an abandoned church or forgotten mansion, I did exactly the same. Then we'd meet outside carrying treasures. She with books, me with sketches. We'd exchange them as though trading pieces of ourselves. One snowy afternoon, she handed me a novel. Inside the cover, she'd written, "For the boy who builds houses, don't forget to build a home for yourself too." I read that sentence 100 times. I still have that book. The ink has faded. The memory hasn't. Christmas break arrived. Most students went home. Neither of us could. My parents lived across the country and couldn't afford the trip. Emily's mother was recovering from surgery. Travel wasn't possible. Campus became strangely empty. The city slowed. For the first time, we spent Christmas Eve together. Nothing extravagant. Just two lonely college students refusing to let each other feel alone. We bought the cheapest decorations we could find. A tiny artificial tree. Paper snowflakes. A string of lights that only worked if you held the plug at a certain angle. Emily insisted that counted as holiday magic. We exchanged gifts. Mine was wrapped terribly. Hers looked professionally packaged. She opened my present first. Inside was a leather notebook. The first page contained a simple sentence. "For the stories you're too afraid to write." She looked at me with shining eyes. "You remembered. You once said every writer needs the right notebook. I also said they're expensive. I skipped lunch for a week. Ethan, you didn't have to. I wanted to." She blinked rapidly, then hugged me. Without warning. Without hesitation. Without thinking. For a moment, time stopped. Her cheek rested against my shoulder. I could smell vanilla from her shampoo. Outside, snow drifted quietly past the window. Inside, my heart forgot every rhythm it had ever known. When she finally stepped back, neither of us spoke. Some silences don't need words. They already contain everything. It became our tradition to celebrate every little achievement together. Finished exams, coffee, good grades, pizza, bad grades, Pizza anyway. One rainy evening after finals, we found ourselves trapped beneath the tiny awning of an old bookstore. The rain came down in silver sheets, drumming against the pavement. Emily stretched out her hand, letting the drops collect in her palm. I've always loved the rain. I know. How? You smile differently. She looked at me. Differently. When you're happy, your smile starts with your eyes. When you're pretending, it starts with your mouth. For the first time since I'd met her, Emily became completely silent. She studied me, as if seeing me for the very first time. Then she whispered, "You notice people too." I opened my mouth to answer, but the words never came. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I knew the sound of her footsteps before she turned a corner. I knew when she was hiding sadness behind a smile. I knew which songs made her cry. I knew how she tucked loose strands of hair behind her ear whenever she was nervous. I knew she hated thunderstorms unless someone was beside her. I knew she pretended not to be afraid of the dark. I knew she always made one impossible wish whenever she saw the first star of the evening. I knew all of this because somewhere along the way, without permission, without warning, without ever planning to, I had fallen hopelessly in love with Emily Carter. The realization should have filled me with joy. Instead, it terrified me, because friendships could survive almost anything. Love could lose everything, and I wasn't ready to risk losing the best person who had ever walked into my life. So I smiled, changed the subject, and let the rain hide everything I couldn't bring myself to say. Little did I know, someone else had already begun noticing her too. And fate was quietly preparing the first crack in the beautiful future I believed we were building together. There is a dangerous kind of hope that grows in silence. It doesn't ask for promises. It doesn't demand certainty. It survives on little things. A smile that lingers a second too long. A hand that reaches for yours without thinking. A text that says, "Did you get home safely?" A seat always saved beside someone. It whispers, maybe they feel it too. And if you're not careful, that whisper becomes the future you begin living inside your own heart. Spring arrived quietly. The trees outside Brookside University exchanged their bare branches for blossoms, and the campus seemed to wake from a long sleep. Emily loved spring. "It smells like second chances," she said one morning as we walked to class. I laughed. "You can smell second chances." "I can. And what do they smell like?" She closed her eyes dramatically. "Coffee, fresh rain, old books, and flowers trying too hard." I shook my head. "You make everything sound like poetry." "No." She smiled. "I just pay attention." That was Emily. She noticed the things everyone else rushed past. The old man feeding pigeons every Tuesday. The tiny flower growing through a crack in the sidewalk. The child laughing on the bus. The tired cashier who smiled when someone finally asked how her day had been. She believed every person carried an invisible story. Maybe that's why she understood people so easily. Maybe that's why she understood me, even when I couldn't understand myself. By our second year, we had become each other's safe place. If something good happened, she was the first person I wanted to tell. If something went wrong, she somehow already knew before I spoke. One afternoon, I failed an important architecture competition. I didn't answer my phone. I ignored every message. I wanted the world to disappear for a while. Around 7 that evening, someone knocked on my apartment door. I already knew who it was. Emily stood outside, holding a brown paper bag. "You've been avoiding me." "I've been busy." She raised one eyebrow. "You've been miserable." I sighed. "Come in." She walked inside, looked at the sketches scattered across the floor, and quietly began picking them up. None of them had been selected. Months of work. Gone. She sat beside me on the floor. I brought burgers. I'm not hungry. I know. Then why? Because people still need to eat when they're heartbroken. I stared at the unfinished drawing in my lap. I wasn't good enough. Emily gently took the pencil from my hand. No, you weren't chosen. Those are two different things. I looked away. It feels the same. She waited before answering. Then she placed my rejected blueprint on the table. You see failure. I see proof that you had the courage to try. I laughed bitterly. Easy for you to say. No. She shook her head. My first short story was rejected by 11 magazines. 11. 12. The 12th one didn't even send a rejection letter. Despite everything, I smiled. She smiled too. See. What? You're smiling. I hate that you know how to fix me. I know. And one day, you'll probably hate that too. I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. As summer approached, we started spending evenings by Silver Lake, just outside the city. It wasn't famous. There were no tourist boats. No crowded cafes. Just calm water, old wooden benches, and sunsets Emily insisted were better than any movie. We'd sit there for hours. Talking. Laughing. Dreaming. One evening, she skipped a small stone across the water. How many children do you want? I nearly choked on my drink. What? She laughed. I'm asking a hypothetical question. You ask terrifying hypothetical questions. So, I don't know. Maybe 2. She nodded thoughtfully. I want 3. You've already planned this. Of course. And their names. She smiled mischievously. I'm not telling. Why? You'll steal them. I promise I won't. No. They're secret. I watched the fatting sunlight dance across the lake. And your husband? What about him? What kind of person do you want? She became unusually quiet. Finally, she whispered. Someone who makes ordinary days feel safe. Not rich. Not famous. Not perfect. Just safe. I wanted to tell her that I could do that. That I would spend the rest of my life trying. But the words remained, trapped somewhere between my heart and my lips. A few weeks later, Emily invited me to her mother's birthday dinner. I was nervous for reasons I couldn't explain. Her mother, Grace, greeted me with a warm smile before pulling Emily aside. They whispered for a moment. Then Grace looked toward me again. She smiled knowingly. During dinner, she asked, So, Ethan, how long have you two been together? Emily nearly dropped her fork. We're not together. Grace looked genuinely surprised. Oh, I thought. She glanced between us. I suppose I misunderstood. The rest of dinner felt strangely different. On the walk home, neither of us spoke. Finally, Emily laughed. My mother embarrassed you. A little. She's been trying to marry me off since I turned 20. She's subtle. Emily smiled. Do you ever think about it? What? Getting married someday. Sometimes. Me too. She looked up at the stars. I just hope it's with my best friend. My heart slammed against my ribs. Was that a hint? An invitation? Or just another dream spoken aloud? I searched her face for answers. Instead, I found only moonlight. The following semester, everything began to change. At first, it was almost invisible. Emily became busier. She joined the university literary magazine, started attending writing workshops. stayed late after classes. Sometimes we'd go 2 or 3 days without seeing each other. It shouldn't have mattered, but it did. One Friday, I waited outside her classroom with 2 coffees. She never came. An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Emily, I'm so sorry. The workshop ran late. Rain check." I smiled. Of course. But the rain check became another. Then another. Then another. Life, I told myself. People get busy. Still, something felt different. Not broken. Just different. One afternoon, I finally met the reason. His name was Daniel Brooks. Tall, confident, well-dressed. He was the guest editor helping with the university's literary magazine. A successful young publisher from the city. He couldn't have been much older than us. Emily introduced us outside the campus library. "Ethan, this is Daniel." "The Daniel." She laughed. "I've mentioned him." Daniel smiled and offered his hand. "I've heard a lot about you. Hopefully good things. The best." He seemed genuinely kind. The kind of person you wanted to dislike, but couldn't. We talked for several minutes about books and architecture before he excused himself. As he walked away, I casually asked, "So, he's nice?" Emily nodded. "He really is." There was something in her smile. Something new. Something I couldn't name. For the first time in years, I felt something ugly. Jealousy. Not because Daniel had done anything wrong, but because someone else had discovered the same light I'd been quietly living beside for years. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed every conversation Emily and I had ever shared. Every laugh. Every hug. Every sunset. Had I imagined everything? Had I mistaken friendship for something more? Or had I simply waited too long? The next morning, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and said the words aloud for the first time. "I love her." The reflection staring back at me looked terrified. Maybe because it knew what came next. Either I confessed, or I spent the rest of my life wondering. A week later, Emily called. "Can you meet me at Silver Lake? Now, please." Something in her voice sounded unusually serious. I arrived just before sunset. She was already sitting on our favorite bench. The wind lifted strands of her chestnut hair across her face. She looked beautiful. And somehow, sad. "I've missed this place," she said softly. "Me too." We sat in comfortable silence. The lake shimmered beneath the orange sky. Emily reached into her bag. "I have news." My heartbeat quickened. "Good news? Bad news?" She smiled nervously. "I've been offered an internship." "Emily, that's amazing." "In New York." The smile froze on my face. "For how long?" 6 months. Only 6 months. Why did it suddenly feel like forever? She looked at me carefully. "Say something." "I'm happy for you." "You don't sound happy." "I'm just..." I searched for the right words. "I'm going to miss you." She looked down at the water. "I'm going to miss you too." The silence that followed felt heavier than any we'd ever shared. The sun slowly disappeared beneath the horizon. Emily whispered, "Sometimes, I wish life didn't make people choose." Before I could ask what she meant, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. "It's Daniel." She answered. She laughed. And for the first time since I'd met her, I felt like a stranger sitting beside the woman I loved. As the last light faded over Silver Lake, I realized something that chilled me to my core. If I didn't tell Emily how I felt soon, someone else might write the ending to our story. There comes a moment in every love story when silence becomes more dangerous than the truth. I reached that moment on a Tuesday. It wasn't dramatic. There was no thunder, no music, no sign from the universe. Just a man standing alone in his apartment, staring at his reflection, realizing that fear had already stolen too much of his life. I had spent 2 years convincing myself that waiting was wise. That someday there would be a perfect moment, a perfect sentence, a perfect sunset. But love doesn't wait for perfect. It only waits for courage. And I had run out of excuses. Emily was leaving for New York in 12 days. 12. I counted them, the way prisoners must count the marks on a cell wall. Every morning, one less chance. Every night, one more regret. Work became impossible. My sketches made no sense. Coffee tasted like warm water. Even my apartment felt different, as though it already knew someone important was about to leave. One evening, I opened the old leather notebook I had given Emily for Christmas. Not hers. Mine. The one where I drew buildings whenever my thoughts became too loud. Instead of sketches, I began writing. Not blueprints. Not measurements. Just words. Emily, I don't know when friendship became love. Maybe it happened the first time you laughed, one of my terrible jokes. Maybe it happened when you made garlic pasta out of almost nothing. Maybe it happened the evening you taught me to stop looking only at buildings and start looking at sunsets. All I know is that somewhere along the way, you became my favorite part of every ordinary day. I stopped writing, folded the page, placed it inside an envelope, then stared at it for nearly an hour. Confession looked so simple on paper. Reality was another story. 3 days later, Emily called. Ethan. Hey, are you free Saturday? I think so. My mom wants to have a little farewell barbecue. I'd love you to come. Of course. And she hesitated. I'd really like you there. I wouldn't miss it. When the call ended, I looked at the envelope again. Saturday. That would be the day. No more waiting. Grace Carter's backyard looked like something from an old movie. String lights hung between 2 maple trees. Wildflowers surrounded the wooden fence. Music drifted softly from an old radio balanced on the porch railing. Emily was arranging plates when she saw me. There you are. She walked over and hugged me without hesitation. You look nervous. I always look nervous. She laughed. No. Today it's worse. I smiled weakly. You notice everything. I told you. I observe. Her smile lingered a moment longer than usual. Then someone called her name from across the yard. I'll be right back. As she walked away, Grace appeared beside me carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. You love her. I nearly dropped mine. What? She smiled gently. You heard me. You don't have to answer. Mothers become experts at recognizing certain things. I looked toward Emily. She was laughing with a group of relatives. The evening sun wrapped itself around her like gold. Grace followed my gaze. She's happiest when you're around. Hope bloomed inside me. But, Grace continued softly, she's also scared. Scared of what? Of losing people she loves. Before I could ask another question, someone interrupted us. The conversation ended, but her words stayed with me. As the evening faded into night, guests slowly began leaving. Soon only Emily and I remained in the backyard. The string lights glowed softly above us. Crickets sang somewhere beyond the fence. She sat on the old porch swing. The same swing where she'd spent countless evenings reading as a child. I sat beside her. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, I'm going to miss this. The swing. She smiled. No. You. The world became very still. I reached into my jacket pocket. The envelope. My fingers found it immediately. This was it. The moment I'd imagined 1,000 times. I need to tell you something. She turned toward me. So do I. My heart raced. You first, she said. I pulled the envelope halfway from my pocket. Before I could speak, her phone rang. She frowned. I'm sorry. It's Daniel. I should answer. I nodded, trying not to let disappointment show. She stepped away toward the garden. I watched her silhouette beneath the string lights. She laughed once, then listened quietly. After several minutes, she returned. I'm sorry. Everything okay? She nodded. Just internship paperwork. Oh. She looked at me expectantly. You were going to say something. Every word I had rehearsed vanished. It's nothing. Her smile faded almost imperceptibly. You sure? Yeah. I'm sure. I hated myself the moment I said it. Coward. One more chance. Thrown away. Emily left for New York the following Wednesday. I drove her to the airport. The highway felt shorter than ever before. Every traffic light seemed determined to hurry us toward goodbye. Neither of us talked much. The radio played quietly. Rain traced thin lines across the windshield. At the terminal entrance, I helped unload her suitcases. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone trying very hard to be brave. I'll be back before Christmas, she said. I know. You'll visit. If I can. She smiled. You better. I forced a laugh. She looked at me carefully. Ethan. Promise me something. Anything. Don't disappear while I'm gone. What? You have a habit. When life gets difficult, you hide. I don't hide. She raised one eyebrow. You ignored me for 4 days after losing that architecture competition. That was different. No, it wasn't. She stepped closer. So promise. I nodded. I promise. She held out her little finger. I laughed. Seriously. Seriously. We're 24. I don't care. Pinky promise. Shaking my head, I hooked my finger around hers. She smiled with quiet satisfaction. There. Now it's legally binding. For a brief second, I almost kissed her. Almost. Instead, an announcement echoed through the terminal. Final boarding call. Emily hugged me tightly. Longer than usual. When she finally pulled away, her eyes looked suspiciously bright. I'll miss you. I'll miss you too. She turned. Walked towards security. Halfway there, she looked back. I lifted my hand. She smiled, then disappeared into the crowd. I stood there long after she was gone, watching an empty hallway, holding words that had become heavier than my own heartbeat. The first few weeks weren't so bad. We texted every day. She sent photos of bookstores in Manhattan. I sent pictures of strange buildings I'd found around the city. She complained about noisy roommates. I complained about impossible clients. Some nights we'd talk for hours. It almost felt like nothing had changed. Then, life happened. Her internship became demanding. Mine did too. Our conversations became shorter. Daily texts became every few days. Phone calls turned into voice messages. Sometimes we'd miss each other by only minutes. Sometimes by entire weeks. I kept telling myself it was temporary. 6 months. Only 6 months. Love could survive 6 months. Couldn't it? One rainy evening in October, I decided to surprise her. I booked a train to New York. I packed lightly, bought flowers, carried the letter I'd never given her. This time, nothing would stop me. I would tell her everything. No more fear. No more waiting. No more silence. As the train sped through the night, I imagined her face when she saw me. I imagined taking her to dinner, walking through Central Park, finally saying the words that had lived inside me for so long. For the first time in months, the future felt bright again. I had no idea that fate had other plans waiting for me in New York. Plans that would begin with an ordinary cafe. And a single moment that would convince me I'd already lost the woman I'd loved for years. People always say timing is everything. I used to think that meant arriving at the right place at the right moment. I was wrong. Sometimes timing means arriving 5 minutes too early, or 5 seconds too late. Sometimes it means witnessing something that was never meant for your eyes. And sometimes it means watching your own heart break without anyone realizing it. The train reached New York just after noon. The city buzzed with a kind of restless energy that made my hometown feel like a quiet dream. Yellow taxis rushed through crowded streets. Steam drifted from subway grates. People hurried past one another without looking up, each carrying a destination that seemed desperately important. Emily would have loved describing it all. She always believed cities had personalities. Every city tells a different story, she once told me. And New York, it's a story that never sleeps. I smiled at the memory as I stepped out of the station. In my backpack was a neatly wrapped book I'd bought for her from an old bookstore near campus. Inside the cover, I had written only one sentence. No matter how far you go, you'll always have a home in my heart. The words sounded impossibly sentimental now. Still, they were true. Emily worked at a small publishing office in Midtown. I knew the address from one of her letters. My plan was simple. Wait outside. Surprise her when she finished work. Ask her to dinner. Tell her everything. Simple. At least, that was the plan. I arrived nearly an hour early. There was a little cafe across the street from her office. I ordered black coffee and chose a table beside the window. From there, I could see the entrance perfectly. Every time the glass doors opened, my heart skipped. Not yet. Not yet. Still not her. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. Only 13 more minutes. I reached into my backpack and touched the envelope. The letter was still there. The edges had softened from being carried for months. I wondered how many people had walked around with an entire future folded inside a single piece of paper. At exactly 5 o'clock, she appeared. Even from across the street, I recognized her instantly. Some things never change. She still tucked loose strands of hair behind her ear whenever the wind caught them. She still walked quickly, as though afraid time might leave without her. She looked happy, healthier, more confident. New York suited her. I stood up, smiled, picked up my backpack. This was it. Before I could leave the cafe, someone stepped out of the building behind her. Daniel. He called her name. Emily turned around. He caught up with her. They laughed about something I couldn't hear. Then, without thinking, she reached for his hand. Or maybe he reached for hers. Even now, years later, I honestly don't know which happened first. I only remember seeing their fingers intertwine. Naturally, comfortably, as though they'd done it 100 times before. The world became strangely quiet. The traffic disappeared. The conversations inside the cafe faded. Even the sound of my own breathing seemed impossibly far away. I watched them cross the street together. Daniel said something. Emily laughed. The same laugh that used to echo through empty university hallways. The same laugh that had once made my tiny apartment feel like home. Except, it wasn't for me anymore. I should have walked over. I should have said hello, asked questions, given her the chance to explain. Instead, I stood frozen behind the cafe window like a ghost watching someone else's life. They stopped outside a bookstore. Emily pointed excitedly at something in the display. Daniel leaned closer to look. Then he gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. Such a small gesture, barely noticeable. Yet it shattered something inside me. Because that tiny movement answered every question I had been too afraid to ask. Or at least, I believed it did. My phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Guess what? I finally finished editing my first manuscript. Call me tonight. I stared at the screen, then looked back across the street. She was still smiling, still talking, still standing beside Daniel. The irony was almost unbearable. She had texted me. At the exact moment, I watched her with another man. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I typed, "Congratulations." Deleted it. Typed again, "I'm actually in New York." Deleted that too. Finally, I slipped the phone back into my pocket without replying. It was the first message from Emily I had ever ignored. I don't remember leaving the cafe. I don't remember where I walked. New York became a blur of crowded sidewalks and unfamiliar faces. Hours passed. Darkness settled over the city. Rain began falling just after 8. I wandered through streets without purpose until I found myself standing in Central Park. The benches glistened with rainwater. The pathways were nearly empty. I sat beneath a large oak tree, soaked to the skin. The book I'd brought for Emily was damp around the edges. Carefully, I opened it. The inscription stared back at me. "You'll always have a home in my heart." I laughed. A quiet, broken sound. Then I closed the book again. Maybe some gifts aren't meant to be given. My phone rang. Emily. I watched her name flash across the screen. Once. Twice. 3 times. I couldn't answer. Not because I was angry. Because I knew she'd hear it. The heartbreak. The disappointment. The tears I refused to let fall. The call ended. A moment later, another message arrived. "Everything okay? You've never ignored me before." I closed my eyes. How could I explain something I barely understood myself? So I did the one thing I had promised never to do. I disappeared. The next morning, I boarded the first train home. The book remained unopened in my backpack. The letter remained undelivered. Outside the train window, cities gave way to fields, and fields gave way to forests. I watched the landscape pass without seeing any of it. My mind replayed the same image over and over. Emily smiling. Daniel beside her. Their hands together. Maybe they had just started dating. Maybe they'd been together for months. Maybe she had wanted to tell me. Maybe. None of those answers mattered anymore. Because I had waited too long. Love doesn't always end because someone stops loving. Sometimes it ends because fear speaks louder than the heart. And fear had been my closest companion for years. Back home, I buried myself in work. Long hours. Weekend projects. Anything that kept my mind occupied. Emily kept trying. She called. She texted. She emailed. At first every day. Then every week. Then every month. Each message became shorter. More careful. As though she was slowly learning that the person she trusted most no longer wanted to be found. One evening, nearly 2 months after New York, I finally opened our old conversation. There were dozens of unread messages. One of them caught my eye. "Ethan, did I do something wrong?" Another. "Please talk to me." Another. "I miss my best friend." My chest tightened. I wanted to reply. I wanted to tell her everything. To ask about Daniel. To admit how badly I'd misunderstood. But pride is a cruel thing. It convinces you that silence protects your dignity, when all it really protects is your loneliness. So I locked my phone and convinced myself that letting her go was the kindest thing I could do. I didn't know that Emily was carrying a truth she had desperately wanted to tell me. A truth that would have changed everything. If only I had answered that one phone call in the rain. 3 years later, a cream-colored envelope would arrive at my apartment door. Inside would be a wedding invitation, and I would believe it was the first time my heart had broken. I was wrong. It had actually broken years earlier, in a little cafe in New York, because I had trusted what my eyes saw. Instead of asking the woman I loved what was really happening. People believe silence is empty. It isn't. Silence has weight. It fills rooms. It follows you home. It sits beside you during dinner. It sleeps on the other half of your bed. It becomes so familiar that one day you stop noticing how lonely you've become. For 3 years, silence became my closest companion. The first winter after New York was the hardest. Everything reminded me of Emily. The little cafe near campus, where she'd insisted the cinnamon rolls tasted better on rainy mornings. The bookstore, where she spent an hour deciding between 2 novels before buying both. The park bench overlooking Silver Lake. Even the grocery store where she'd once laughed because I couldn't tell cilantro from parsley. Memories have a cruel habit of hiding in ordinary places. You never know when one will reach out and grab you. Sometimes it happened while driving home from work. Sometimes while making coffee. Sometimes while hearing a stranger laugh in exactly the same way she used to. Grief doesn't ask permission. It simply arrives. I kept the leather notebook she'd given me. Most nights, I opened it with every intention of sketching a building. Instead, I wrote about her. Never her name. Just the girl who collected sunsets. The girl who believed broken books told better stories. The girl who taught me that buildings needed more windows. Every page became another conversation we never had. Another confession I never made. Another goodbye I never spoke aloud. One evening, after filling nearly half the notebook, I realized something strange. I wasn't writing to remember her. I was writing because I was terrified of forgetting even the smallest detail. The exact shade of her eyes in autumn sunlight. The way she held a coffee mug with both hands when it was cold. The tiny scar near her left wrist from falling off a bicycle when she was 12. How did I know that story? Because she had told me one night while we watched stars over Silver Lake. She'd laughed while telling it. I smiled through tears as I remembered. Some memories refused to fade. My career flourished. Funny how life does that sometimes. While my heart was falling apart, everything else seemed determined to succeed. The architectural firm promoted me, then promoted me again. At 27, I became the youngest lead designer in the company's history. Clients congratulated me. Coworkers celebrated. My parents proudly told relatives about my success. Everyone assumed I was happy. Success is remarkably convincing from the outside. No one notices the empty apartment waiting when you return home. My mother called every Sunday evening. Have you met anyone? It became our ritual. Not yet. You work too much. I know. You deserve someone. I know. You can't spend your whole life alone. I looked around the apartment. The bookshelf Emily had helped me build. the coffee mug she'd painted for my birthday. Its branches stretched over the sidewalk where hundreds of new students walked every day. Exactly where my blueprints had scattered. Exactly where Emily had knelt to help me. I parked the car, walked over, placed my hand against the rough bark. "You were right," I whispered. The wind answered by shaking loose a handful of leaves. Emily had once said some people are accidents. Others are appointments. I wondered, had fate introduced us? Only so we could teach each other how to let go. "Excuse me." I turned. An elderly groundskeeper stood nearby. "You okay, son?" I smiled politely. "Yeah." He glanced at the tree. "You know, I've worked here nearly 30 years. This old maple has seen thousands of students." He chuckled. "But every now and then, a couple comes back years later. They stand exactly where you're standing. They remember." He looked at me carefully. "You remembering someone?" I nodded. He smiled with surprising gentleness. "The lucky ones aren't the people who never lose love. They're the ones who had it." Before I could answer, he tipped his hat and continued down the path. His words stayed with me long after he disappeared. That evening, I finally dialed Emily's number. 1 ring. 2. 3. Voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I tried again the next day. No answer. Again. Nothing. By the 5th attempt, I convinced myself she'd changed her mind. Maybe she'd regretted giving me her number. Maybe she was busy planning her wedding. Maybe she simply didn't want to reopen old wounds. So I stopped calling. A week later, my phone rang during lunch. Unknown number. "Hello. Ethan. Daniel." I almost hung up. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "No. I got your number from Emily." My stomach tightened. "Is everything okay?" There was a long silence. Then he sighed. "I was hoping we could meet." I frowned. "Why?" "It's about Emily." "What about her?" "I think there are some things you deserve to know." Every instinct inside me screamed to refuse. Instead, I heard myself ask, "When?" "Tomorrow. 3 o'clock. The little cafe on Oak Street. The same cafe where Emily and I had celebrated finishing our final exams years ago. I'll be there." When the call ended, I stared at the silent phone. Why would Daniel want to meet me? What could possibly matter now? He was marrying the woman I'd loved for nearly a decade. What truth could exist that would change any of that? I didn't know. But for the first time since receiving the invitation, I felt something other than grief. Curiosity. And somewhere beneath it, fear. Because sometimes the answers we spend years searching for are the very ones we aren't prepared to hear. The hardest truths don't arrive like lightning. They arrive quietly, across a small table, between 2 untouched cups of coffee, spoken by someone you believed was the villain of your story, only to discover he had been carrying his own heartbreak all along. I arrived at Oak Street Cafe 15 minutes early. Old habits. Emily used to tease me about it. "If you ever become late," she'd laugh, "the universe will probably stop spinning." The cafe hadn't changed much over the years. The wooden floors still creaked. The chalkboard menu still listed too many kinds of coffee. Someone had replaced the old green curtains with white ones, allowing afternoon sunlight to pour through the windows. I chose a table near the back. The same table where Emily had once celebrated my first architecture award by buying me a slice of chocolate cake we couldn't really afford. I smiled at the memory. Then the smile faded. The chair across from me was empty. At exactly 3 o'clock, Daniel walked in. He spotted me immediately. His expression wasn't smug. It wasn't triumphant. If anything, he looked exhausted, as though he hadn't slept in days. He sat down quietly. "Thank you for coming. I almost didn't." "I know." A waitress appeared. Neither of us ordered anything except black coffee. When she left, silence settled between us. Daniel looked down at his hands. "I don't really know where to start. You could start with why Emily invited me to her wedding." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." He took a deep breath. "Ethan, Emily never stopped looking for you." The words landed so softly, yet hit harder than anything I'd ever heard. I stared at him. "What?" "After New York, when you disappeared, she thought she'd done something wrong." My pulse quickened. "I saw you. In New York. I saw both of you." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. "The cafe." I nodded. "You were holding hands." For the first time, Daniel looked genuinely heartbroken. "Oh," he whispered. "So that's what happened." "What do you mean?" He leaned back in his chair. "I've been wondering for 3 years." "Wondering what?" "Why she came back from work that day smiling because you'd texted her. And then, why you vanished without a word." I blinked. "She smiled because of me." Daniel nodded. "She'd just gotten your message saying you'd call that night." My heart skipped. "I never sent that." He frowned. "You didn't?" "No." I ignored her. Confusion spread across his face. "Then," he stopped. "As far as Emily knew, you were coming to New York." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What?" Daniel nodded. "She told me her best friend was surprising her." "I never told her." "You didn't have to." He smiled sadly. "She knew you well enough to guess." The waitress quietly placed our coffee on the table. Neither of us touched it. Daniel looked out the window before speaking again. "There's something else." "What?" He hesitated. "The hand." "What hand?" "The one you saw. The one you thought meant Emily and I were together." I clenched my jaw. "I know what I saw." "I know. And I understand why you believed it." He paused. "But you didn't see what happened 30 seconds earlier." I said nothing. Daniel continued. "Emily slipped on the wet curb. I caught her. When she steadied herself, she laughed and thanked me. We crossed the street because she twisted her ankle a little." He looked directly into my eyes. "We weren't dating." The room became strangely quiet. "No," I whispered. Daniel nodded. "No." My mind refused to accept the words. "If you weren't together, then why?" "Because I was in love with someone else." I stared at him. "What?" He smiled faintly. "My fiancé." I frowned. "But Emily isn't your—" "No." He gently shook his head. "Emily isn't the woman I proposed to." For several long seconds, I couldn't breathe. Then who? Who was I holding a wedding invitation for? Daniel reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He removed an old photograph. It showed him standing beside a smiling blonde woman. She wore an engagement ring. They looked deeply in love. Her name was Sarah. My voice barely worked. "What happened?" Daniel looked at the photograph for a long time. "Cancer." The single word shattered the silence between us. "She died 2 years ago." I swallowed hard. "I'm so sorry." He nodded. "So am I." He carefully returned the photograph to his pocket. "Emily helped me survive. As a friend. Nothing more." I rubbed my temples. None of this makes any sense. I know. Daniel took another slow breath. Because you haven't heard the whole story yet. After you disappeared, Emily blamed herself. She called, texted, emailed. You never answered. I know. She cried in the office bathroom more than once. Every sentence felt like another stone pressing against my chest. I thought, I know what you thought. You thought we were together. He gave me a tired smile. She thought you stopped loving her. The irony was unbearable. Two people, completely in love, destroyed by one misunderstanding. I told her to go after you. Daniel continued. I told her to get on a train, to knock on your apartment door, to demand an explanation. Why didn't she? His eyes lowered. Because 2 weeks after she came back from New York, her mother collapsed. I froze. What? Heart failure. Emily moved home immediately. The internship ended. Hospital, doctors, surgeries, medical bills. She put her entire life on hold. Images flashed through my mind. Emily smiling through phone calls. Emily saying she was busy. Emily growing quieter. Not because she had chosen someone else. Because life had overwhelmed her. And I had mistaken her silence for rejection. I wanted to tell you. Daniel whispered. But I barely knew you. And after you disappeared, Emily begged me not to interfere. She kept saying, if Ethan wants to leave, I can't force him to stay. I closed my eyes. My own words echoed inside my head. If she loves someone else, I should let her be happy. We had both sacrificed ourselves for a lie neither of us had bothered to question. Finally, I looked at the invitation. The wedding. Daniel smiled sadly. It's not mine. I stared at him. What? It never was. My heartbeat thundered. But you read the names. I did. Look again. He reached across the table, turned the invitation over, pointed toward the inside. In tiny, elegant letters beneath the main announcement. I saw it. Officiated by Daniel Brooks. Not groom Daniel Brooks. Officiated. Daniel was conducting the ceremony. Not getting married. The groom's name was someone else entirely. Someone whose last name wasn't Brooks. My vision blurred. A tiny seashell from the day Emily insisted lakes could still have treasures. A faded napkin with a terrible sketch she'd drawn of me. Underneath everything else, the letter. The one I'd carried to New York. The one she'd never read. I unfolded it carefully. The paper had yellowed at the edges. The words were still painfully familiar. Emily, I think I've loved you for longer than I've been willing to admit. Every dream I have somehow finds you standing inside it. Every plan for the future begins with your smile. If you don't feel the same, I'll survive. Losing our friendship scares me more than rejection ever could. But if I never tell you, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering. I stopped reading, because I already knew how the letter ended. What mattered wasn't the ending. What mattered was that she had never been given the chance to answer. The following morning, I took the day off work, something I almost never did. Instead of staying home, I drove. No destination, just roads. Sometimes movement feels easier than thinking. Without realizing it, I found myself outside Brookside University. The campus looked smaller than I remembered. Students hurried between classes, carrying backpacks much like we once had. The maple tree still stood near the entrance. Older, taller. I had read what I expected to read. not what was actually written. 3 years ago, I believed my eyes. Today, I had done exactly the same thing again. Daniel looked at me with heartbreaking sympathy. "Ethan, Emily isn't marrying me." The coffee between us had gone cold. So had the world I thought I understood. If Emily wasn't marrying Daniel, then who was standing at the end of that aisle? And why? Why had she written that note saying there were things she wished she'd told me years ago? I suddenly realized something terrifying. The wedding wasn't the end of our story. It was only the beginning of the truth. There is a painful difference between seeing and understanding. For 3 years, I had lived inside a story I wrote without asking anyone else how it ended. One glance through a cafe window. One misunderstood touch. One invitation I never truly read. That was all it took. Not because fate was cruel, because fear is an excellent liar. And I had believed every word it whispered. I stared at the invitation again. This time, slowly. Every line, every word, every letter. How had I missed it? The groom's name wasn't Daniel Brooks. It was Michael Bennett, a name I had never heard before. Below it, in smaller, elegant script, were the words, "Ceremony officiated by Daniel Brooks." I felt sick. Not because Emily was marrying someone else. Because I had built another false story inside my head without bothering to look closely. Daniel watched me quietly. I almost made the same mistake when the printer sent us the first proof. I looked up. The layout is confusing. I told Emily someone might misunderstand it. He gave a tired smile. Neither of us imagined that someone would be you. I covered my face with both hands. I've been an idiot. No. You've been hurt. There's a difference. No. I shook my head. I never asked. I never called. I never gave her a chance. The weight of those words settled over me like wet concrete. 3 years. 3 years stolen. Not by another man. Not by fate. But by my own silence. Daniel finally took a sip of his now cold coffee. "I should tell you the rest." I nodded. "I think you deserve to know." My chest tightened. I don't know if I deserve anything. He ignored that. When Emily came back from New York, her mother's condition got worse. "You know that already." I nodded. Grace needed surgery. It wasn't guaranteed she'd survive. So Emily gave up the publishing job. She moved back home, worked 2 part-time jobs, and spent every free hour at the hospital. I closed my eyes. I remembered all the messages I never answered, all the phone calls I ignored, while I sat alone, convincing myself she'd replaced me. She had been sitting beside a hospital bed, feeling abandoned by the person she trusted most. "She defended you," Daniel said quietly. "To everyone." "What do you mean?" "Her friends were angry. They thought you had ghosted her. They called you selfish." His voice softened. "Emily never let them." "What did she say?" Daniel smiled sadly. "She kept saying, 'Something must have happened. Ethan would never leave without a reason.'" The words struck me harder than any accusation ever could. Even after everything, she believed in me, when I hadn't even believed in myself. "Did she?" My voice cracked. "Did she ever?" I couldn't finish. Daniel understood anyway. "Love you." I looked away. He answered without hesitation. "Yes." My world stopped. "She loved you long before New York." The cafe disappeared. The sounds around me faded. Everything narrowed to that single sentence. "No." I whispered. Daniel reached into his wallet. I hoped I wouldn't need this. He unfolded a carefully protected piece of paper. The edges were worn, the ink slightly faded. "It's yours." I frowned. "No, it belongs to Emily." He handed it to me. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Emily's. My hands shook so violently that I almost dropped it. Across the top, she had written only one line. "Things I'll probably never be brave enough to tell Ethan." The date was 1 week before she left for New York. I hesitated. "I shouldn't read this." Daniel smiled gently. "She asked me to give it to you." "When?" "If I ever found you again." My throat tightened. I unfolded the page. The first sentence blurred through sudden tears. "Dear Ethan, you once told me that buildings need more windows so people inside can remember the world outside." I laughed softly through tears. "No." Daniel shook his head. "You said buildings." "I said windows." I smiled weakly. She remembered both. I continued reading. "I'm scared that New York will change everything. Not because of the city. Because I'm afraid distance will make you realize you never needed me as much as I needed you." My breathing became uneven. The next lines hurt even more. "I've loved you for almost 2 years. Every time you smile at me, I think today might finally be the day you tell me. Every time you don't, I convince myself to wait one more day." A tear landed on the paper. Then another. The ink blurred beneath them. I wiped my eyes and kept reading. Maybe I'm imagining everything. Maybe we're just best friends. But if there is even the smallest chance, please don't let me leave without telling me how you feel. The letter ended there. Unsigned. Unfinished. As though she'd stopped writing because hope itself had become too frightening. I couldn't speak. For several minutes. Neither of us did. Finally, I whispered, "I loved her too. I know. I carried a letter to New York. I know. You know." Daniel nodded. "Emily found it." I looked up so quickly my chair scraped across the floor. "What?" "The day you left New York. You accidentally left your backpack at the train station. I mailed it to your office." I frowned. "I remember getting it back." Daniel nodded. The zipper had been open. The letter slipped out. "Emily saw your name. But she didn't read it. She called me. Asked what she should do." I stared at him. "What did you tell her?" "I told her to read it." "And?" He smiled sadly. "She refused. If Ethan wanted me to know, he would have given it to me himself. She never opened it. Never crossed that line. Even when every answer she wanted was inside. That was Emily. She respected silence, even when it was breaking her heart." I looked down at the letter she'd written. "So, she really loved me." Daniel's answer came quietly. "She never stopped." The words should have filled me with joy. Instead, they filled me with grief. Because they came 3 years too late. I swallowed hard. Then why is she marrying Michael? For the first time since we'd met. Daniel looked genuinely uncomfortable. He stared out the cafe window for several seconds before answering. "When you see her, ask her yourself. Why won't you tell me?" "Because..." He smiled sadly. "That's her story. Not mine." He stood, placed a few bills on the table, then rested a hand gently on my shoulder. "Go to the wedding, Ethan. Not to stop it. Not to make a scene. Go because both of you deserve one honest conversation." He started walking toward the door. Halfway there, he stopped. Without turning around, he said one final sentence. "The biggest misunderstanding wasn't New York." I frowned. "What do you mean?" His voice was barely above a whisper. Emily isn't marrying the man she loves. Then he walked out of the cafe, leaving me alone, with 2 letters, 3 years of regret, and one terrifying question echoing through my heart. If Emily still loved me, then why was she about to marry someone else? Some journeys take you across countries. Others take you only a few miles. Yet somehow, the shortest journeys are often the hardest. Driving to Emily's childhood home felt longer than the trip to New York had ever been. Every mile carried another memory, another regret, another question. By the time I turned onto Maple Street, my hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles had turned white. I wasn't afraid of hearing the truth. I was afraid the truth would come too late. Emily's house looked exactly as I remembered. The white wooden fence, the rose bushes lining the front walkway, the old porch swing where we'd spent countless summer evenings watching fireflies. Time had touched the house gently. It had painted the shutters a little darker, allowed ivy to climb one corner, but it still felt like Emily. Warm, quiet, unpretentious. Home. I parked across the street. Then, I couldn't move. What if Daniel was wrong? What if Emily had already moved on? What if seeing me only reopened wounds she'd finally managed to heal? I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. 3 years ago, I'd left without asking. Today, I couldn't leave without knowing. The front door opened before I reached it. Grace Carter stood there. For a moment, she simply stared. Then her eyes widened. Ethan. Her voice broke on my name. Oh, Ethan. Before I could say anything, she wrapped her arms around me. Not the polite hug of an old family friend. The desperate embrace of someone welcoming back a person she'd thought was gone forever. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I frowned. For what? She stepped back, studying my face. You don't know. My stomach tightened. Know what? Instead of answering, she reached up and gently touched my cheek. You've both lost so much. She invited me inside. Nothing had changed. The living room still smelled faintly of lavender and old books. Family photographs covered the mantel. The grandfather clock still ticked with the same steady rhythm. I noticed a framed picture from Emily's college graduation. I wasn't in it, because by then, I'd already disappeared from her life. Grace followed my gaze. She looked for you. I closed my eyes. I know. No. She shook her head softly. I don't think you do. She disappeared into another room. When she returned, she carried a worn cardboard box tied with blue ribbon. My breath caught. I've been waiting 3 years to give you this. She placed it gently on the coffee table. What is it? She smiled sadly. The pieces of a love story that never got the chance to finish. Inside the box were letters. Dozens of them. Every envelope had my name written across the front. Ethan. Nothing else. No address. No stamp. Just my name. I looked at Grace in confusion. She wrote to you. Every week. For almost a year. My hands trembled as I picked up the first envelope. She never mailed them. Grace's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to. Every single time. So why didn't she? Grace took a slow, unsteady breath. Because she believed. You had chosen to leave. The framed sketch she'd once insisted I enter into a competition. I know. Mothers hear the things you never say. One Sunday she asked quietly, "Are you still thinking about her?" The question stole the air from my lungs. I don't know. She waited, then whispered, "Yes, you do. Emily stopped calling after 6 months. The messages became birthday wishes. Then Christmas greetings. Then, nothing. At first, I felt relieved. It was easier that way. Cleaner. No constant reminders. No unanswered questions. But relief slowly transformed into something far worse. Regret. I caught myself opening old conversations, reading messages from years ago, smiling at jokes that no longer felt funny. One rainy evening, I noticed the very last text she'd ever sent. "I hope someday you'll tell me why you left without saying goodbye." No anger. No accusation. Just sadness. That somehow hurt the most. Life settled into routine. Wake up. Work. Come home. Read. Sleep. Repeat. Friends tried introducing me to women. I tried. I really did. There was Hannah. She loved hiking. We went on 3 dates. She deserved someone fully present. Instead, every sunset reminded me of Emily. Then there was Olivia. Kind. Funny. An elementary school teacher. She laughed at my terrible jokes. One evening, she reached across the table and held my hand. Instead of feeling butterflies, I remembered another hand. Another autumn. Another promise. I ended things the following week. Not because Olivia had done anything wrong. Because loving someone halfway is another form of heartbreak. She deserved better. So did I. On my 30th birthday, I visited Silver Lake for the first time in nearly 4 years. Nothing had changed. The wooden bench still leaned slightly to one side. The old willow tree still touched the water. Children still fed ducks near the shore. Only one thing was different. Me. I sat exactly where Emily used to. The sunset painted the lake in gold and amber. For a moment, I could almost hear her voice. "Actually, look." I smiled sadly. "I'm looking." The wind carried leaves across the water. One landed beside me. I picked it up absent-mindedly. Inside my wallet was an old photograph. It had somehow survived every move. Every apartment. Every attempt to move on. Emily and I stood outside the university library. She was laughing because the wind kept blowing her hair into my face. Whoever took the picture captured the exact instant before I laughed too. We looked happy. Not in the dramatic way movies portray happiness. Just comfortable. Like two people who believed tomorrow would always arrive. I stared at the photo until the last light disappeared, then carefully returned it to my wallet. Some people carry lucky coins. I carried a memory. 3 weeks later, I attended a charity gala hosted by one of our biggest clients. Black suits, crystal chandeliers, expensive wine. The kind of event where everyone smiled just a little too much. I was speaking with another architect when someone tapped my shoulder. "Ethan." The voice was familiar. Painfully familiar. I turned. For a heartbeat, the room disappeared. Emily. She looked older. Not old. Just lived in. Her hair was slightly shorter. There were faint shadows beneath her eyes. But her smile was exactly the same. "Ethan." She sounded almost breathless. "I can't believe it's really you." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. "It's been 3 years," she finished quietly. People moved around us, laughing, talking, clinking glasses. Yet somehow, we stood inside a silence that belonged only to us. "You look well," she said. "You too." It was a lie. She looked tired, and something in her eyes felt fragile. She glanced around the ballroom. "I didn't know you'd be here." Neither did I. A nervous laugh escaped both of us. For the first time in years, we were standing only a few feet apart. 3 years of unanswered questions. 3 years of regret. 3 years of silence. All waiting between us. She looked as though she wanted to say something. Instead, she asked softly, "How have you been?" How do you answer a question like that? Do you tell the truth? That every bookstore reminded you of her? That you still couldn't watch sunsets without hearing her voice? That you had spent 3 years pretending to move on while secretly hopping to see her one more time? Or do you choose the easier answer? "I've been okay." She nodded slowly. "I'm glad." She wasn't. I could hear it, because she had always smiled with her eyes. Tonight, they looked heartbreakingly sad. Before either of us could say another word, a familiar male voice called from across the ballroom. "Emily." "Daniel." He was walking toward us, still confident, still well-dressed, still wearing the same warm smile I remembered from New York. Except this time, he wasn't holding Emily's hand. He looked genuinely surprised to see me. "Ethan." He extended his hand. "It's good to see you again." I shook it. His grip was firm, friendly. Nothing about him suggested he had ever been my rival. "How have you been?" he asked. "Good." "Liar." The word came from Emily. Softly, almost playfully. She looked at me with the same expression she used to wear whenever she caught me pretending everything was fine. For one impossible second, it felt like college again. Then Daniel spoke. "We should probably get going." Emily nodded. Before leaving, she looked back at me. "There are so many things I wanted to ask you. So many things I wanted to tell you." She reached into her purse, pulled out a small card. "My number hasn't changed." She placed it in my hand. "If..." She hesitated. "If you're ever ready to talk." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Then she turned and walked away with Daniel. I stood there, watching them disappear into the crowd. The small card felt impossibly heavy in my hand. 3 years ago, I had ignored her calls. Now fate had given me another chance. I didn't know it then. But before the week was over, a cream-colored envelope would arrive at my apartment. And everything I believed about Emily, about Daniel, about the day I saw them in New York, would begin to unravel. Some people believe fate whispers. I don't. I think fate knocks. Sometimes gently. Sometimes so hard it leaves cracks in your soul. The cream-colored envelope arrived 3 days after the charity gala. By then, I had already memorized the phone number Emily had slipped into my hand. I had typed it into my phone at least 20 times. Every single time. I erased it before pressing call. 3 years of silence had built a wall too high for one moment of courage to climb. I kept telling myself I'd call tomorrow. Tomorrow became another tomorrow. And then, the envelope arrived. The handwriting stole my breath before I even touched it. Emily's. Still graceful. Still careful. Still forming every letter, as though names deserved kindness. For a long moment, I simply stood in the hallway staring at it. The building around me carried on as usual. A neighbor laughed somewhere downstairs. An elevator door opened and closed. A child ran past chasing a red balloon. Life continued. Mine paused. Again. Inside was the invitation. Elegant. Ivory paper. Gold lettering. A small white ribbon tied around the corner. Emily always loved simple things. No unnecessary decorations. No loud colors. Beauty, she believed, never needed to shout. I unfolded it slowly. Together with their families. Emily Carter. My eyes refused to move. My heart begged them not to. Eventually, they did. And Daniel Brooks. The room tilted. I read the sentence once, then again, then a third time, as though repetition might somehow rewrite reality. It didn't. A second piece of paper slipped onto the floor. A handwritten note. I recognized the blue ink immediately. Emily always used the same fountain pen. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. Dear Ethan, I don't know if you'll come. Honestly, I don't even know if I have the right to ask after everything that happened. But there are moments in life when pretending strangers never mattered becomes impossible. You mattered. You always will. If you can find it in your heart, please come. There are things I wish I'd said years ago. Maybe it's too late. Maybe it isn't. Either way, thank you for giving me some of the happiest years of my life. No signature. Just a tiny pressed lavender flower tucked inside the fold. My throat tightened. Emily used to press flowers inside books because she believed memories deserved a scent. I lifted the dried lavender to my nose. The fragrance had almost disappeared. Almost. That night I didn't sleep. The invitation remained on my coffee table. Every time I walked past it, I looked away. At 2 in the morning, I made coffee. At 3, I opened old photo albums. At 4, I found a small cardboard box hidden in the back of my closet. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside, movie tickets, coffee shop receipts. The words hit me like a wave. She didn't want to become someone who begged to be loved. I opened the first letter. The date was 2 weeks after New York. Hi, Ethan. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I called again today. No answer. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're busy. Maybe. I'm running out of hopeful maybes. I swallowed hard. The second letter. Mom's surgery is tomorrow. I'm terrified. I almost called you tonight. Then I remembered. You stopped answering. I hope you're okay. Another. The doctors say she's getting stronger. I wish I could tell you. Another. Today I passed the coffee shop where we used to study. I smiled. Then I cried in my car for 20 minutes. Every letter became harder to read. Not because the words were dramatic, because they were honest. Emily never blamed me. Not once. She simply missed me. I reached the final envelope. Unlike the others, it had never been sealed. Inside was only one page. The handwriting looked shakier, as though she'd written it while trying very hard not to cry. This will be my last letter. Not because I stopped loving you, because loving someone also means respecting the life they've chosen. If walking away made you happier, then I hope happiness never leaves you. Thank you for every sunset, every coffee, every terrible joke, every ordinary day that somehow became extraordinary because you were standing beside me. I'll always love you. Quietly, from wherever life takes me. The page slipped from my fingers. I couldn't stop crying. Not loud. Not dramatically. Just the kind of tears that arrive when your heart finally understands the full cost of its own mistakes. Grace sat beside me. For several minutes, she simply let me cry. Then she spoke. Ethan. I wiped my eyes. Yes. Do you know why Emily agreed to marry Michael? I looked up, slowly shook my head. Grace closed her eyes for a brief moment. She didn't. I frowned. What? The engagement wasn't her idea. My heartbeat quickened. What do you mean? She looked toward the family photographs on the mantel. After my second surgery, the doctors found something else. Fear crept into my chest. What? Grace smiled gently. Not me. Emily. The room spun. What? Grace reached for my hand. She didn't tell anyone. Not even me. Not at first. Cold fear settled through every part of me. What are you saying? Grace's voice trembled. 3 years ago, the same month you disappeared, Emily was diagnosed with a serious heart condition. I stared at her, unable to breathe. She inherited it from her father. It explained the fainting spells she'd hidden, the exhaustion, the chest pains she always blamed on stress. Images flooded my mind. The afternoons she'd quietly sat down during long walks. The moments she'd rubbed her chest when she thought I wasn't looking. The times she'd smiled and said, "I'm just tired." Dear God. The doctors told her. Grace whispered that there was a chance she'd eventually need a heart transplant. My world shattered. She never told me. No. Grace shook her head. Because she couldn't bear the thought of you staying out of pity. I buried my face in my hands. No. Oh, Emily. Grace continued through tears. When Michael proposed, she didn't say yes because she was deeply in love. She said yes because... Grace's voice broke completely. Because he already knew about her illness. He promised to stay. And she believed. No one else would. Silence filled the room. Not ordinary silence. The kind that follows the moment a heart realizes it has misunderstood everything. For 3 years, I thought Emily had chosen another man. The truth was that she had been preparing to fight for her life. Alone. Without the one person she had wanted beside her. Grace reached into the box one last time. She handed me a small silver key. I looked at her in confusion. What is this? She smiled through tears. Emily asked me if you ever came back, to give you the key to the little cabin by Silver Lake. She said, if Ethan ever wants the truth, he'll find it there. I closed my fingers around the key. Outside, rain began tapping softly against the windows. Just like the day the wedding invitation had arrived. And for the first time, I realized the invitation had never been asking me to witness the end of a love story. It had been asking me to finally discover the beginning of the truth. Some places don't preserve furniture. They preserve feelings. A chair remains where someone last sat. A mug stays on the shelf because no one has the heart to move it. A window continues framing the same sunset it did years ago. The little cabin by Silver Lake had always been one of those places. Emily once told me was where she went whenever life became too loud. Silence sounds different there, she'd said. You can actually hear yourself think. At the time, I laughed. Now, I understood exactly what she meant. The rain had stopped by the time I reached the lake. Clouds drifted slowly across a pale afternoon sky. The water was calm. Almost unnaturally calm, as though the world itself had decided to whisper. The cabin stood at the edge of the trees. Small, weathered. Its cedar walls had faded with time. A narrow porch overlooked the lake. The porch swing still hung from rusted chains. I remembered helping Emily repaint it one summer. She'd gotten more paint on me than on the wood. She'd laughed so hard, she'd nearly fallen off the ladder. I smiled despite the ache in my chest. How many beautiful memories had I abandoned because I was too proud to ask one difficult question? The silver key turned easily. The door opened with a familiar creak. Dust floated through beams of afternoon sunlight. The air smelled of old pine, paper, and lavender. Emily. Everything still smelled like Emily. Nothing inside looked expensive. A tiny bookshelf, an old stone fireplace, a worn blue sofa, a knitted blanket folded carefully over one arm. A small wooden desk stood beside the window. On it waited another envelope. This one had only 2 words written across the front. For Ethan. Not if. Not maybe. Just. For Ethan. As though some part of her had always believed I would find my way back. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was another letter. Longer than the others. Several folded pages. The date caught my attention immediately. It had been written 1 month before the wedding invitation. Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, then one of 2 things has happened. Either fate finally became tired of our terrible timing, or you became brave enough to ask questions instead of assuming the answers. A broken laugh escaped me. She still knew me too well. I don't know where to begin. Maybe with an apology. I'm sorry I never chased you harder. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. I drove to your apartment twice. Both times I sat in my car for almost an hour. I kept imagining you opening the door. I imagined you smiling. I imagined you saying you'd been waiting for me. But I also imagined something else. You looking at me with the same kindness people use when telling someone goodbye. I couldn't survive seeing that look in your eyes. I lowered the letter for a moment. Outside, wind stirred the lake into gentle ripples. How many times had we both chosen imagination over truth? I kept reading. Do you remember the night we celebrated Christmas in your tiny apartment? You gave me a leather notebook. You wrote that it was for the stories I was too afraid to write. This became one of them. Every chapter somehow began with your name. My vision blurred again. The doctors told me about my heart a few weeks after New York. At first I laughed. Not because it was funny, because I'd spent years worrying about broken hearts, only to discover mine was literally broken. I gripped the edge of the desk. Grace had told me. Reading Emily's own words somehow hurt even more. Please don't be angry that I didn't tell you. I already knew you disappeared. How could I ask someone who no longer wanted me to carry something this heavy? No. I whispered into the empty cabin. No, Emily. I had wanted to carry everything. I just hadn't known. The next page held something unexpected. A pressed maple leaf. The same bright red color as the tree where we first met. Beneath it she had written, "Some beginnings deserve to stay beautiful." I gently traced the fragile edges of the leaf. It cracked slightly beneath my fingertips. Time had made it delicate. Just like us. Then came the paragraph that stole the air from my lungs. I need you to know something about Michael. I swallowed hard. He is a good man. Kinder than he realizes. He knows. Everything. Everything. I read the line again. He knows I loved someone else. He knows that someone was you. He knows why I still watch sunsets. He knows why I still keep the coffee mug you painted. He even knows why I never changed the password on my old email. Because every password somehow became your birthday. A tear landed on the paper. Michael knew. Then, why would he agree to marry her? Emily answered before I could ask. When he proposed, I said no. 3 times. Each time he asked because he loved me. Each time I refused because I couldn't love him the way he deserved. Eventually, he asked me a different question. If your heart never heals, would you rather spend the rest of your life alone? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. I closed my eyes. The cabin suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too full of ghosts. The final pages grew more personal, more vulnerable. The handwriting became uneven. Sometimes I dream about that rainy day in New York. In every dream, you walk across the street. You smile. You tell me you've loved me all along. Then I wake up. And remember that dreams don't change real life. My heart felt like it was being torn apart one sentence at a time. At the very end, Emily had written only 3 short paragraphs. If you're here before the wedding, please don't come to stop it. Come because I'd like to see my best friend one last time. Then, if you're here after the wedding, I hope life has been kind to you. Please don't spend another minute blaming yourself. We were both young. We were both afraid. And fear speaks louder than love when people stop talking. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. Folded into the back of the letter was one final note, much smaller, written in different ink, as though she'd added it later. P.S. There's one truth I could never bring myself to write in a letter. If you really want to know why I'm marrying Michael, ask him. He promised me he would tell you only if you came looking. I frowned. Ask Michael, not Daniel. Michael. What secret could possibly belong to him? As I folded the letters back into the envelope, I noticed something I had missed. A framed photograph sat on the corner of the desk. It wasn't a picture of Emily, or me, or her family. It was an ultrasound image. Tiny, grainy, black and white. Across the bottom, in Emily's handwriting, were 4 words. Our little miracle, 2024. My breath caught. The room spun. An ultrasound. Whose child? Emily's. Michael's. Or a terrifying possibility began forming in the darkest corner of my mind. One that made every heartbeat feel impossibly loud. There are discoveries that answer questions. And then there are discoveries that create 100 more. I stared at the ultrasound photograph for what felt like an eternity. The tiny image trembled between my fingers. My heartbeat became so loud that I could barely hear the wind brushing against the cabin walls. Our little miracle, 2024. No names. No explanation. No date beyond the year. Just 4 words. Powerful enough to unravel everything I thought I understood. No. I whispered. It can't be. My mind immediately began searching for impossible answers. Maybe it belonged to someone else. A relative. A friend. Perhaps Emily had kept it for sentimental reasons. But deep inside, I knew she wasn't that kind of person. Emily never collected memories that weren't hers. Every photograph in this cabin had meaning. Every pressed flower had a story. Every object had been placed exactly where she wanted it. This picture belonged here, which meant it belonged to her story. I searched the desk more carefully. The top drawer contained notebooks, old receipts, several fountain pens. Nothing unusual. The second drawer held sketchbooks. One of them immediately caught my attention. It wasn't filled with writing. It was filled with drawings. Not Emily's drawings. Mine. Every sketch I'd ever given her had been preserved. The little church I drew during our second year of college. The bookstore where we spent rainy Saturdays. The tiny apartment where she made garlic pasta from almost nothing. She had kept everything. Even the rough sketches I'd once apologized for because they weren't good enough. Between 2 pages rested another folded note. This one was much shorter. You always underestimated your talent. Just like you underestimated how much you meant to me. I smiled through tears. Still correcting me. Even after all these years. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned so quickly that the photograph nearly slipped from my hands. An elderly man stood quietly in the doorway. He wore faded jeans, muddy boots, and a weathered brown jacket. His gray beard moved slightly as he smiled. I figured someone might be here. I frowned. I'm sorry. I didn't realize. He waved away my apology. You must be Ethan. The words stopped me cold. How do you know my name? He chuckled softly. Emily talks about you the way people talk about home. My throat tightened. You know Emily? I've known her since she was a little girl. He stepped inside. I'm Walter. I take care of the cabin. I remembered him vaguely. Years ago, Emily had introduced me to an old family friend who helped maintain the property. Back then, his hair had still been mostly black. Now, time had painted it silver. Walter's eyes fell upon the ultrasound photo, still in my hand. His expression changed. You found that? I wasn't looking for it. I know. He nodded gently. Sometimes answers find us. I hesitated. What is it? He looked toward the lake before answering. That's Emily's. Every muscle in my body stiffened. So, she was pregnant. Walter nodded once. Yes. When? His eyes met mine. About 2 years ago. 2 years. That would have been 1 year after New York. 1 year after I disappeared. My voice barely worked. I swallowed hard. Is the child? Walter looked at me with quiet sadness. You should hear that story from Emily. My frustration rose. Everyone keeps saying that. Daniel. Grace. Now you. Nobody will tell me anything. Walter sighed. Because it isn't our truth to give away. He walked slowly toward the window, overlooking Silver Lake. Emily came here almost every weekend. Even after she got sick. Said the lake reminded her that calm things can still be deep. I smiled faintly. That sounds like her. Walter nodded. She'd sit on that porch for hours. Writing. Thinking. Sometimes crying. He paused. But always waiting. For what? His answer came without hesitation. You. The word echoed through the cabin. Waiting. Not forgetting. Not replacing me. Waiting. I sat down heavily in the old wooden chair. I don't deserve that. Walter looked at me kindly. Probably not. His honesty surprised me. Then he smiled. But neither did she deserve silence. I lowered my head. No. She didn't. For several moments, only the sound of the lake filled the room. Finally, Walter spoke again. Do you know why Emily loved this cabin? I shook my head. Because she said nothing here ever lied. The water reflected exactly what stood before it. The trees never pretended to be flowers. The wind never apologized for blowing. He looked directly at me. People, they're the only ones who spend their lives hiding the truth. I reached into my pocket and removed the wedding invitation. Walter studied it quietly. So, you're going. I don't know. You should. What if it's too late? Walter smiled. Ethan. Too late for what? I stared at him. If you mean stopping the wedding, then yes. That would be wrong. He pointed toward Emily's letter. But if you mean finally telling the truth. He slowly shook his head. The truth is never late. It simply arrives when people are finally willing to hear it. As I prepared to leave, Walter called my name. Ethan. I turned. He reached beneath the desk and pulled out a small wooden box. I almost forgot. Emily left this here 6 months ago. She said, if Ethan ever comes back before the wedding, give him this. The box was barely larger than my hands. Smooth oak. A tiny brass latch. No lock. Just my name carved into the lid. I opened it carefully. Inside rested a simple silver necklace. I recognized it instantly. The tiny compass pendant. I'd given it to Emily on her 23rd birthday. She had once told me, "I always get lost." So I joked, "Now you'll always find your way home." Beneath the necklace lay a folded card. Only one sentence was written inside. "You were always my true north." I could no longer hold back the tears. As the sun began setting over Silver Lake, I stepped outside onto the porch. Orange light shimmered across the water. For the first time in years, I looked up, not at buildings, not at roads, at the sky, exactly as Emily had taught me. I finally looked, I whispered. The wind carried my words across the lake. Behind me, Walter stood silently in the doorway. After a while he spoke. "The rehearsal dinner is tomorrow night." I turned. "The wedding is the day after." Time. There was almost none left. Walter added quietly, "If you want answers, you don't have much longer to wait." I looked down at the compass pendant resting in my palm, then back at the fading sunset. For years, I had been running from the past. Now, for the first time, I was finally running toward the truth. But one question still refused to leave my heart. Who was the child in the ultrasound? And why had Emily hidden that part of her life from everyone she loved? Sleep never came that night. I lay awake in my apartment, the wooden box resting on my bedside table, Emily's compass pendant catching the pale glow of the streetlight outside my window. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw something different. The ultrasound, the unfinished letters, Grace crying in the living room, Daniel quietly saying, "Emily isn't marrying the man she loves." Walter's gentle voice, "She kept waiting for you." How many people had known pieces of our story? How many had stood helplessly between two stubborn hearts, hoping one of us would finally speak? Too many. At 6 the next morning, my phone buzzed. It was Daniel. Only one sentence. "Meet me at St. Andrew's Church, 10:00 a.m. Michael wants to see you." I stared at the message. Michael. The groom. The man Emily had agreed to marry. The man who knew she loved someone else. The man who knew about her heart condition. The man who had somehow become the center of a story I still didn't understand. St. Andrew's Church sat on a quiet hill overlooking the river. The rehearsal decorations had already begun. Florists carried white roses through the front doors. Workers arranged rows of wooden chairs beneath flowering trees. Everything looked beautiful. Everything looked heartbreakingly final. Daniel was waiting near the entrance. He greeted me with a tired smile. "Thank you for coming. I'm not sure why I did." "You will." He glanced toward the church garden. "He's over there." Michael Bennett was kneeling beside a flower bed, helping a little girl plant white lilies. She couldn't have been older than 6. She giggled every time dirt landed on his shoes. Instead of getting annoyed, he laughed with her. When he noticed us approaching, he stood. The little girl hugged his leg before running back toward her mother. Michael wiped the soil from his hands and extended one toward me. "Ethan, I've wanted to meet you for a long time." I shook his hand. There was no hostility in his eyes, only kindness. And something else. Sadness. Daniel quietly excused himself. "I'll give you two some privacy." As he walked away, Michael motioned toward a nearby bench beneath an old oak tree. We sat. For a while, neither of us spoke. Finally, Michael broke the silence. "Emily told me about you on our second date." I frowned. "Second date?" He smiled faintly. "The first date ended after 23 minutes. Why?" "Because she spent most of it talking about an architect who believed buildings needed more windows. Despite everything." I laughed. He laughed too. I realized pretty quickly I wasn't competing with another man. I was competing with a memory. I never wanted to compete. He looked out across the church lawn. I just wanted her to smile again. His honesty disarmed me. I thought she loved you. Michael slowly shook his head. No. She cared about me. She respected me. But love... He smiled sadly. Love already had your name. The words hurt more than comforted. I asked her once. He continued. If Ethan knocked on your door tomorrow, what would you do? I looked at him. What did she say? Michael didn't hesitate. She said, I'd probably forget how to breathe. I lowered my head. He continued quietly. Then she cried. The first time I'd ever seen her cry in front of me. Why? My voice cracked. Why did you still ask her to marry you? Michael took a long breath. Because I loved her. He smiled. Real love isn't about possession. It's about presence. I knew she might never love me the same way. I accepted that. I only wanted to make whatever time she had left. He stopped. Less lonely. Time she had left. Those words echoed inside me. What do you mean? Michael reached into his jacket pocket. He removed a folded medical report. I immediately recognized the hospital logo. He handed it to me. I think she'd be angry that I'm showing you this. Then why are you? Because she's still protecting you. And I'm tired of watching both of you protect each other into misery. With trembling hands, I opened the report. Medical terminology blurred together until one line forced everything else into focus. Advanced dilated cardiomyopathy. Below it, heart transplant strongly recommended. My vision blurred. Further down the page, another sentence. Patient currently not eligible due to complications. No, I whispered. Michael nodded. She's getting weaker. She never wanted you to know. She said if you came back, you'd stay because you felt responsible, not because you loved her. I laughed bitterly through tears. She still doesn't understand. Michael looked at me carefully. No, I think she understands perfectly. She just loves you enough to let you choose freely. I stared at the medical report. So the wedding. Michael looked toward the church. The wedding isn't really about romance. I frowned. Then what is it about? He smiled sadly. Security. Health insurance. Legal rights. I looked at him in confusion. He explained quietly. My company provides medical coverage that includes transplant specialists. Spouses qualify immediately. The world seemed to stop turning. She agreed. Because she needed treatment. He nodded. And because she was running out of options. Every assumption I'd made collapsed. She hadn't chosen another man over me. She had chosen a chance to live. Not because she stopped loving me. Because she believed I had stopped loving her. My hands trembled so badly, I could barely hold the report. The ultrasound. Michael smiled gently. I wondered when you'd ask. My heart pounded. Whose baby was it? His expression changed. The sadness returned. It was ours. I closed my eyes. Pain washed through me. Not jealousy. Just the quiet ache of time lost. But, he continued softly, we lost the baby. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. It happened at 11 weeks. Emily had written, our little miracle. My chest tightened. I'm so sorry. He nodded. So is she. She still keeps the picture. Not because she can't move on, but because she believes every life deserves to be remembered. That sounded exactly like Emily. I need you to understand something. Michael leaned forward. I've never hated you. I couldn't. because every time Emily smiled, it was usually because she'd remembered something about you. He laughed quietly. It became almost funny. I'd buy her flowers. She'd thank me, then tell me about the time you picked wildflowers because you couldn't afford roses. A lump formed in my throat. I'd take her to dinner. She'd remember the burnt pasta you somehow turned into a romantic evening. I'd bring her coffee. She'd laugh about how you always forgot to put sugar in your own cup. He looked at me with remarkable kindness. I never stood a chance. The church bells rang once. Then again. Rehearsal was about to begin. Michael stood. So, I asked quietly, "Why did you want to meet me?" He looked directly into my eyes. "Because I'm going to ask you a question." "What question?" He took a slow breath. "If Emily still loves you, and if you still love her, are you finally going to tell her?" The wind carried the sound of distant laughter across the church grounds. Inside, people were preparing for a wedding. Outside, a man who should have been my rival was giving me permission to fight for the woman we both loved. Then Michael said something I never expected. "If she chooses you, I'll walk away." I stared at him in disbelief. He smiled. "Love isn't winning. It's wanting the person you love to be truly happy." For the first time since this journey began, I realized the greatest man in this story wasn't me. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't even Michael because he was noble. It was Michael because he loved Emily enough to let her go. The rehearsal doors opened, and somewhere inside the church, Emily was waiting, completely unaware that the man she'd spent 3 years trying to forget was finally ready to tell her the truth. The church bells echoed across the valley. Each chime sounded like a countdown, not to a wedding, to the moment 2 lives would finally stop hiding from the truth. I stood beneath the old oak tree, unable to move. Michael had already walked toward the church. Halfway up the stone steps, he turned back. "Well," I looked at him. "I don't know what to say." He smiled. "Don't say anything to me. Say it to her." Then he disappeared inside, leaving me alone with the words I'd been carrying for nearly a decade. My legs felt strangely heavy as I climbed the church steps. Every heartbeat seemed louder than the last. I wasn't there to stop a wedding. I wasn't there to make a dramatic confession. I was there to finally give Emily the truth she deserved 3 years ago. Whether it changed anything was no longer my decision. The rehearsal had already begun. Family members filled the front pews. Florists adjusted bouquets. Musicians quietly tuned their instruments. Soft laughter drifted through the sanctuary. The church looked beautiful. Sunlight poured through stained glass windows, painting the wooden floor in shades of crimson, gold, and blue. For a brief moment, I couldn't see Emily. Then, she stepped out from a side hallway. She wasn't wearing a wedding dress, just a simple ivory rehearsal dress. Her hair rested loosely over one shoulder. She looked tired, beautiful, fragile. When her eyes found mine, she stopped walking. Everything else disappeared. People kept talking. Someone laughed near the altar. A child ran between the pews. But for us, time simply stopped. "Ethan." She barely whispered my name. I nodded. "Hi." The word felt impossibly small after 3 years. She stared at me. For the first time since I'd known her, Emily seemed completely speechless. Then, without warning, she crossed the distance between us and hugged me. Not carefully, not politely. She threw her arms around me as though she'd been waiting 3 years to breathe again. I held her, carefully at first, then tighter, afraid she might disappear if I let go. She was trembling. So was I. When she finally stepped back, there were tears in her eyes. You came. I almost didn't. I know. She smiled sadly. You've almost done a lot of things. Despite everything. We both laughed. It lasted only a second, but it felt like sunlight after years of rain. I read your letters. Her eyes widened. My mother. She nodded. I asked her to keep them. I'm sorry. She shook her head immediately. No. I'm the one who's sorry. Ethan. I should have come after you. I should have knocked on your door. I should have. No. I interrupted gently. I saw you in New York. I assumed. I ran. I never gave you a chance. The tears she'd been holding back finally escaped. You were there. I nodded. The cafe. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I waited for your call that entire night. I know. I thought. Her voice broke. I thought maybe you changed your mind. I swallowed hard. I thought Daniel was your boyfriend. She stared at me for several seconds. Then, to my complete surprise, she laughed. Not because it was funny, because the tragedy of it was almost impossible to believe. We're idiots. I smiled through tears. The biggest. For a while, we simply looked at each other. 3 years of questions, slowly dissolving into understanding. Then I reached into my jacket, pulled out the old envelope, the one I'd carried to New York. The edges were worn. The paper faded. I think this belongs to you. She recognized it immediately. Her hands began shaking. You kept it. I never stopped carrying it. She accepted it carefully, as though afraid it might disappear. I've imagined reading this. She whispered. For 3 years. You can. She looked at me. Now. I nodded. Now. She unfolded the letter. Silence settled around us. I watched every emotion cross her face. Surprise. Disbelief. Hope. Heartbreak. Joy. By the time she reached the final page, she was crying openly. The last lines read, I love you. Not because you're perfect. Not because you make life easy. I love you because every ordinary moment becomes extraordinary when you're beside me. If you don't feel the same, I'll still be grateful that I knew someone capable of making sunsets more beautiful. But if you do, please let me spend the rest of my life reminding you that you're never alone. Emily lowered the paper. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. You idiot. I laughed softly. I know. I loved you too. I know. You knew. I read your letter. She nodded slowly. I always wondered. Then, very gently, she placed her forehead against mine. I spent 3 years loving someone who loved me back. And neither of us knew. A soft cough interrupted us. We turned. Michael stood several feet away. He wasn't angry. He wasn't upset. He simply looked peaceful. I didn't mean to interrupt. Emily quickly wiped her tears. Michael. He smiled kindly. I think. He looked at both of us. You two have some things to finish. Emily's voice trembled. I'm so sorry. He shook his head. Don't apologize. You never lied to me. You told me from the very beginning that your heart belonged to someone else. She closed her eyes. I wanted to love you. I know. You deserve someone who loves you completely. He smiled. So do you. Emily looked utterly heartbroken. I never wanted to hurt you. You didn't. Michael took a small, velvet ring box from his pocket. Everyone nearby had stopped talking. Family members watched quietly from the pews. Daniel stood near the altar. Grace held both hands over her mouth. Michael opened the ring box, then closed it again. He smiled. I think these belong to the wrong ending. He gently placed the box into Emily's hands. I'm releasing you from every promise you made because you felt you owed me. Tears rolled down Emily's face. No, you don't owe me. He corrected softly. You never did. The silence inside the church became sacred. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Michael walked toward me. For one terrifying second, I wondered if he was going to punch me. Instead, he hugged me. A brief, firm embrace. Then he whispered so only I could hear. Don't waste another 3 years. When he stepped back, there were tears in his own eyes. But he was smiling. The kind of smile only truly selfless people manage. The kind that breaks your heart because you know how much it must cost. Emily looked at me, then at Michael, then back at me. I don't know what happens now. I took her hand, the same hand I'd watched through a cafe window years earlier. The hand I'd misunderstood. The hand I'd thought I'd lost forever. You don't have to know, I said softly. You just don't have to face it alone anymore. She squeezed my hand, then suddenly winced, very slightly. One hand drifted instinctively toward her chest. The smile disappeared from my face. Emily. She forced a smile. I'm okay. But I remembered Grace's words. Walter's silence. Michael's medical report. She wasn't okay. Not really. And as I looked into her eyes, I realized something terrifying. Finding each other again was only the first battle. Keeping her alive would be the second. The church bells rang once more. This time, not as the beginning of a wedding, but as the beginning of a fight neither of us intended to lose. Love stories often end with a confession. Real ones begin there, because saying, I love you is easy. Staying when life becomes frightening. That is where love proves itself. The church slowly emptied. Guests whispered among themselves. Some hugged Emily. Others quietly shook Michael's hand. No one argued. No one blamed. There was only an overwhelming sense that everyone had witnessed something far greater than a canceled wedding. They had witnessed honesty. And honesty, though painful, always leaves room for hope. Emily and I stepped outside into the cool evening air. The sun was sinking beyond the hills, turning the sky into shades of orange and violet. For years, she had watched sunsets without me. For years, I had watched them thinking she belonged to someone else. Now we stood together again. Neither of us said anything. Sometimes silence heals, when it no longer hides the truth. Finally, Emily spoke. You shouldn't have come. I smiled. I know. I'm serious. You have a career. A future. You don't need this. She looked down at her hands. You don't need someone whose heart might stop at any moment. I stepped closer. My heart stopped the day I walked away from you. She looked up. Tears gathered in her eyes. Ethan. No. I gently interrupted. For 3 years, you decided what was best for me. And for 3 years, I decided what was best for you. We were both wrong. She managed a tiny smile. We really are terrible at communication. The worst. We both laughed softly. The laughter faded. I reached into my pocket. The silver compass pendant rested in my palm. You kept this. She nodded. I wore it almost every day. She touched the chain around her neck. hidden beneath her dress. The compass was still there. She pulled it into the fading sunlight. The silver had become worn. Tiny scratches covered its surface. I never took it off. She whispered. I told everyone it was just jewelry. But it wasn't. She looked at me. It reminded me that somewhere there was still a place that felt like home. We sat on the stone steps outside the church. Emily rested her head lightly against my shoulder, exactly as she used to during long evenings by Silver Lake. So, I asked quietly, "Tell me everything." She smiled sadly. Everything. Everything. She took a long breath. The heart condition wasn't the hardest part. She began. The hardest part was pretending I wasn't afraid. I'd smile for my mother. I'd joke with Daniel. I'd tell Michael I was fine. She looked at me. But every night, I wondered how many sunsets I had left. A lump formed in my throat. She continued. When the doctors said I needed a transplant, I wasn't scared of dying. I frowned. What were you scared of? She answered almost immediately. Dying before I could tell you. That none of it was your fault. I closed my eyes. You still protected me. Always. She smiled. You protected me too. I disappeared. You thought you were giving me freedom. I accepted your silence because I thought I was respecting your choice. She laughed quietly. We loved each other, and somehow turned it into the world's longest misunderstanding. A black SUV slowly pulled into the church parking lot. Two people stepped out. One was Michael. The other, a woman in a white medical coat. She walked toward us carrying a folder. Michael gave Emily an encouraging smile. I thought you should know. Emily frowned. Know what? The doctor introduced herself. I'm Dr. Harper. I've been reviewing your case. Emily looked confused. I wasn't expecting. Michael interrupted gently. I made a few phone calls. Emily stared at him. What did you do? He shrugged. I couldn't marry you, but I could still help you. Dr. Harper opened the folder. We've received new information from the transplant network. Emily's breathing became uneven. The doctor smiled warmly. A donor heart has become available. Silence. Complete. Absolute. Emily stared without blinking. What? It isn't guaranteed. The doctor explained carefully. There are still compatibility tests. But you've moved to the top priority list. I felt Emily's hand tighten around mine. Her entire body trembled. Are you serious? Dr. Harper nodded. Very. Tears streamed down Emily's face. For the first time since I'd known her, they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of hope. A few moments later, the doctor excused herself to take a phone call. Emily remained frozen. I don't know how to feel. She whispered. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to decide right now. She looked at me. What if it doesn't work? Then we'll face that. What if I don't survive surgery? I gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. Then every single day until then, I'll remind you how deeply you've been loved. She started crying again. You always know what to say. I smiled. No. I just finally stopped waiting to say it. Michael returned carrying 2 paper coffee cups. He handed one to me, the other to Emily. She looked at him with overflowing gratitude. I'll never be able to repay you. He smiled. I don't want repayment. I want postcards. She blinked. What? When you're both old and arguing about where to retire. Send me postcards. Emily laughed through tears. I promise. The evening grew darker. Church lights glowed softly behind us. For a while, the three of us simply sat together. Not as rivals, not as enemies. Just three people whose lives had crossed in extraordinary ways. Finally, Michael stood. "I should go." Emily hugged him tightly. "Thank you." He hugged her back. "No." He looked at both of us. "Thank you for reminding me that real love isn't about holding on. It's about wanting another person to have the life they deserve." Then he walked away, not looking back, because some goodbyes are made gentler by courage. Emily slipped her fingers between mine. "So," she asked, "what happens now?" I smiled. "Tomorrow, we meet with the transplant team. The day after that, we annoy Daniel." She laughed. "And after that," I looked toward the lake in the distance. "After that, we start over." She rested her head against my shoulder once more. "I'd like that." So would I. The stars slowly appeared overhead, one by one, just as they had on the night we first confessed our dreams beside Silver Lake. Years ago, Emily had asked me whether I believed every person had one great love. Back then, I hadn't known the answer. Now I did. Love wasn't measured by perfect timing. It wasn't defined by never making mistakes. Love was choosing each other again. After fear, after silence, after heartbreak, after everything, and somewhere beyond the stars, a new heart was already on its way. Not just for Emily, but for the life we still had the chance to build together. There are mornings that divide your life into two chapters. Before and after. The phone rang at 4:17 a.m. Its sound shattered the silence of Emily's apartment. For one terrifying second, neither of us moved. We simply looked at each other. Then the phone rang again. Emily's hands began to tremble. She already knew. Somewhere, deep inside, she already knew what that call meant. "Hello." Her voice was barely audible. She listened, didn't speak, didn't breathe. After nearly a minute, a single tear rolled down her cheek. Then another. She slowly lowered the phone. "It matches," she whispered. My heart pounded. The donor heart. "It's a match." The room became impossibly still. Not because time had stopped, because life had just begun again. Within an hour, we were driving toward the hospital. The city was still asleep. Streetlights reflected across rain-soaked roads. Emily sat quietly beside me. Her fingers never left mine. Neither of us spoke much. Words suddenly felt too small. Some moments are too sacred for conversation. As we entered the hospital, the familiar scent of antiseptic filled the air. Doctors greeted Emily with calm professionalism. Nurses moved quickly but gently. Everything happened with practiced efficiency. Paperwork, blood tests, final examinations, consent forms. It all seemed strangely unreal, as though we had wandered into someone else's life. Dr. Harper met us outside the surgical wing. The compatibility results look excellent. Emily smiled nervously. Excellent doesn't mean guaranteed. No, the doctor admitted honestly. No surgery ever is. She paused. But your chances are very good. Hope, not certainty. Hope. Sometimes, that is enough. Hours passed. Family members slowly arrived. Grace, Daniel, Walter, even Michael. Nobody had asked him to come. He simply appeared, carrying coffee for everyone. Exactly the kind of thing Emily would have expected him to do. Grace hugged him tightly. "Thank you." He smiled. "She's family." Nobody argued. Emily was finally dressed in a pale blue hospital gown. Her hair had been tied back. She looked exhausted, fragile, beautiful. The nurse explained that they were ready. Emily looked around the room. Then, her eyes found mine. "Can I have 1 minute?" The nurse nodded. "We'll wait outside." The room emptied, leaving only us. Neither of us knew where to begin. So Emily smiled. "I always imagined this differently." I laughed softly. "So did I. I thought..." She hesitated. "I thought we'd grow old before hospitals became part of our story. We still will." She looked at me. So confident. So terrified. I admitted. She nodded. "Me too." I reached into my pocket, carefully removing something I'd carried for years. The tiny brass key to the cabin. "I think this belongs to both of us now." She closed her fingers around it. "You kept it. I'll keep everything that reminds me of you." She smiled through tears. "Promise me something. Anything. If I don't wake up." I immediately shook my head. "No. Ethan. No. Please." I closed my eyes, then nodded. "Okay." She took a slow breath. "Don't spend the rest of your life waiting beside ghosts." The words hurt. I already did that once. She gently touched my face. "And you survived." "Barely." But she didn't need to hear that. "My turn," I said quietly. "If you wake up." She smiled. "When?" I smiled back. "When you wake up. We're going to Silver Lake. We're going to repaint the porch swing. You'll make fun of my terrible coffee. We'll argue about books. You'll tell me buildings still need more windows." She laughed. "They do. And every autumn, we'll visit the maple tree. The one where everything started." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that." So would I. A knock came at the door. The nurse smiled kindly. "It's time." Emily stood. Her knees wobbled slightly. Instinctively, I reached for her hand. She squeezed mine. 1 heartbeat. 2. 3. "I love you," she whispered. The words I'd waited years to hear. "I love you too," I answered. This time, I'm not letting silence answer for me. She smiled. "Good." Then the nurses gently wheeled her toward the operating room. She never looked away. Not until the doors slowly closed between us. Waiting. No one prepares you for waiting. Minutes become hours. Hours become entire lifetimes. Grace prayed quietly. Walter stared through the window at the sunrise. Daniel paced endless circles through the hallway. Michael sat beside me. Neither of us spoke. After a while, he handed me a folded piece of paper. "Emily asked me to give you this." "If..." He couldn't finish. I looked at the envelope, then back at him. "I'm not opening it." He frowned. "Why?" "Because she's going to give it to me herself. For the first time in days." Michael smiled without sadness. "I hope you're right." 6 hours. Then 8. Then 10. Every time the operating room doors opened. Every heart in the waiting room stopped. Every time. It was someone else. Until finally, Dr. Harper appeared. Her surgical cap was still on. Exhaustion covered her face. No one dared speak. She removed her mask. Then, she smiled. The transplant was successful. Grace broke into tears. Daniel covered his face. Walter quietly whispered, "Thank you." Michael let out the breath he'd apparently been holding all day. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't even cry. My knees simply gave way. I sat down on the nearest chair, overwhelmed by relief. 24 hours later, Emily finally opened her eyes. The room was quiet. Machines beeped steadily beside her bed. Morning sunlight warmed the curtains. I had fallen asleep in the chair beside her, still holding her hand. I felt her fingers move. Slowly, weakly, I opened my eyes. She was looking at me, confused at first, then smiling. A tired, beautiful, life-filled smile. "Hi," she whispered. I laughed through tears. "Hi. Did it work?" I gently placed my hand over hers. I felt it. Strong. Steady. A heartbeat that had traveled from one life into another. It worked. She closed her eyes for a moment. A single tear escaped. When she looked back at me, she smiled. "I guess I finally get another tomorrow." I leaned forward and kissed her forehead. "No," I whispered. "You get thousands of them." Outside the hospital window, the first light of dawn spread across the city, not as an ending, but as a promise. Because sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't finding the person you love. It's being given enough time to love them well. Every love story begins with a meeting. Most end with a wedding. Ours began with a misunderstanding, nearly ended with silence, and survived because, in the end, love proved stronger than fear. 1 year later, autumn returned. The maple tree at Brookside University had grown another ring. Its leaves burned brilliant shades of crimson and gold. Students hurried across campus exactly as they always had. Some carried heavy backpacks. Some laughed too loudly. Some were falling in love without even realizing it. Life had continued, just as it always does. Emily stood beneath the maple tree, healthy. Her cheeks had regained their color. The scar from her surgery rested quietly beneath the collar of her dress, a reminder not of weakness, but of survival. She smiled as she looked up into the branches. "Do you remember?" I laughed. "How could I forget? You dropped every blueprint you owned. You stepped on one. You still remind me. I always will." She slipped her hand into mine. "And I'm grateful you did." Recovery hadn't been easy. There had been difficult weeks. Physical therapy, medication, countless hospital visits. Days when walking across the room left Emily exhausted. Days when fear returned without warning. But we faced each one together. For the first time in our lives, neither of us carried the weight alone. Every appointment, every setback, every victory, we shared them. That was what love looked like. Not grand speeches, not dramatic gestures, just showing up. Again, and again, and again. Daniel visited often. He eventually accepted a position as director of a nonprofit foundation that helped families waiting for organ transplants. The waiting list shouldn't feel so lonely. He told us one afternoon. Emily hugged him. "You'll change lives." He smiled. "I learned from someone who never gave up on people." He looked at both of us. "You too owe me fewer misunderstandings from now on." "We promise." Emily laughed. "No more assumptions. No more running away." Michael became one of my closest friends. Life has a strange sense of humor. The man I once believed had stolen the woman I loved became the man who helped save her life. Several months after Emily's recovery, He met someone. Her name was Sophie. She was a pediatric nurse with an infectious laugh and a habit of correcting his grammar. They're perfect together, Emily whispered one evening as we watched them tease each other across a dinner table. They really are. I agreed. Michael caught us smiling. What? Emily laughed. Nothing. He narrowed his eyes playfully. I don't trust that smile. We all laughed. Some friendships are born from joy. Others, from forgiveness. The second kind often lasts longer. Grace recovered beautifully as well. She returned to tending her rose garden every morning. One spring afternoon, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was the very first photograph ever taken of Emily. She couldn't have been more than a few hours old. Grace smiled. I think it's time someone else started collecting family memories. I looked at Emily. She was already crying. So am I. I admitted. Walter still cared for the cabin by Silver Lake. Only now. He had help. Every Saturday, Emily and I drove there together. We repainted the porch swing exactly as promised. This time, she managed to get even more paint on me. Some things never changed. Thankfully, one evening, as the sun settled across the lake, I reached into my jacket pocket. Emily noticed immediately. You're nervous. I am. She smiled. You've been rehearsing this speech for weeks. I have. You've rewritten it 17 times. 18. She laughed. I know you too well. You do. I knelt. Not because tradition required it. Because gratitude did. I looked into the eyes I'd nearly lost forever. Emily Carter, you once told me that buildings need more windows. Because people should never forget how beautiful the world is. You spent years teaching me how to truly look. You taught me patience, kindness, forgiveness, and that ordinary moments become extraordinary when they're shared with the right person. I opened the small velvet box. Inside rested a simple platinum ring. I wasted 3 years. I can't get them back. But if you'll let me, I'd like to spend every year I have left making up for them. Will you marry me? Emily was already crying. She laughed through her tears. You really took 18 drafts to say that. I smiled. I actually had 19. She nodded. Good. Because my answer would have been yes after the first sentence. She slipped the ring onto her finger. Yes. Always yes. 6 months later, the invitations were mailed. Simple ivory paper, gold lettering, a white ribbon, almost identical to the invitation that had once broken my heart. Except this time, the names read, Emily Carter and Ethan Hayes, together, exactly as they were always meant to. The wedding took place beside Silver Lake, not in a grand cathedral, not in a luxury hotel, just beneath the willow tree where Emily had once taught me to watch sunsets. Rows of white chairs faced the water. Wildflowers lined the aisle. The breeze carried the scent of pine and fresh grass. Daniel officiated the ceremony. Before beginning, he smiled at the guests. I've performed many ceremonies. He looked at Emily and me. But this is the first wedding I've attended that actually started 3 years after the first proposal. Everyone laughed, including us. Grace walked Emily down the aisle. Walter carried the rings. Michael stood proudly beside me as my best man. When our eyes met, he gave me a small nod. The same quiet encouragement he'd given me outside the church a year earlier. I nodded back. Some debts can never truly be repaid, only honored. When it came time to exchange vows, I didn't read from paper. I spoke from memory. Emily, I spent years believing silence protected love. I was wrong. So today, I make only one promise. No matter how frightened I become, no matter how uncertain life feels, I will always talk to you. I will always choose honesty before fear. And I will spend every sunrise reminding you that you're never alone. Emily smiled through tears. Then she spoke. Ethan, I once believed loving someone meant letting them go. I was wrong too. So I promise this. When life becomes difficult, I won't protect you from the truth. I'll invite you into it. Because carrying pain together is lighter than carrying it alone. Daniel smiled. By the love you've already proven, and by the promises you've made today, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. I did. The applause echoed across the lake. Birds lifted from the trees. The setting sun painted the water gold. It looked exactly as it had the evening Emily first told me. To stop staring at buildings and start looking at the sky. Later that night, after the music had ended, after the guests had gone home, Emily and I sat alone on the porch swing, the same one we'd painted together. She rested her head against my shoulder. Do you ever think about the wedding invitation? She asked quietly. I do. I smiled. It didn't break my heart. She looked at me. No. It saved it. She squeezed my hand. Funny. What? I was thinking the same thing. Above us, thousands of stars filled the night sky. Below them, Silver Lake reflected everyone. Just as Walter had once said, water never lies. Neither does love. Not when people are finally brave enough to speak. If our story has taught you anything, let it be this. Never let fear write the ending to a story that honesty could save. Ask the difficult question. Make the phone call. Read the letter. Tell the person you love how you truly feel. Because sometimes, the greatest tragedy isn't losing someone. It's spending years believing you already have. And sometimes, one conversation is all it takes to bring two hearts home.